Oh, hey. So sometimes when we're talking to our dealer partners, we get a request, and the request is pretty simple. It's, I want to run Facebook ads, or I want to run a Google ad for this. I want to run that campaign. And the reality is a campaign is a composition of a whole bunch of parts put together to achieve a goal, right? When we're talking about the different parts, those are just different parts of the puzzle. We want to bring it all together like a whole bunch of instruments in an orchestra and create that symphony that is the campaign. Hi there, my name's Ian Cruikshank. Welcome to my desk. I'm the CEO of a great company called Leadbox, and I'm excited to spend some time chatting with you about a campaign checklist, helping you to more deeply understand what is important to have in place to get your campaigns rocking. Let's get to it. All right, so first things first, let's put a frame around it. Let's define a campaign. And I've got it written down right here. A campaign is a group of activities that can influence a goal or behavior of our target market, right? It's a group of things. It's a whole bunch of pieces put together to achieve that desired goal, right? So it's not any one item. It's about putting those pieces together to make all of the activities work in concert or in symphony, right? To achieve that goal. So really the best campaigns involve multiple activities working well together, right? So what they're trying to do effectively is create action, execute a behavior, or initiate a behavior, right? We want to get people to do what we want them to do. We want them to buy a car. We want them to service their vehicle. We want them to even just give us their email. Whatever it is, there's all these little pieces of the puzzle that go together to create that action, right? So really we got to figure out, what are these activities that we're going to put in place to provoke that behavior or initiate that behavior. So let's break it down a little bit. Think of your own situation. You're out in market and you're doing some research for, I don't know, a new mountain bike, right? You're getting into that. Suddenly you are segmented in the Google machine as a mountain bike purchase intender. All the systems from the mountain biking company go into play, right? But if they only send one thing your way, like a display ad, you might see that bike and say, huh, cool, and do nothing else. Suppose that same organization figures out that they can send you a display ad, they can run a video on YouTube, they can put search ads in your path, right, where you're punching in the details for that particular brand that you saw in display, that you saw on YouTube, and then you punch in the details online and you take action. Those are three parts, maybe of many that they've got running, that are going to help you to move down the path that they want you to move down. Turn that around and we get our world as dealer marketers trying to help our potential customers do the same thing. So, first piece of the puzzle is the who, the target market. Who are we trying to communicate with in order to share the message that's ultimately going to achieve our sale of whatever it is we're trying to sell? But how do we segment those folks down? Think of it this way. Perhaps you're trying to sell SUVs, right? So you've got to figure out that target market for the people who are going to be interested in those SUVs, right? Maybe you want to break it down and say, okay, this one in particular, not necessarily the sportiest SUV out there, it's targeted more at families. Maybe it's thinking about safety. Maybe it's thinking about that nice road trip, right? So then we're thinking, okay, that target market, we want to formulate in our mind's eye who those people are. So we've decided we're targeting young families, right? We're going to target folks that are safety focused, and maybe we're going to target folks that are going to be interested in space and comfort, all that sort of stuff. So we've got a bit of an idea of who that persona is, of who that person is that we're trying to reach out to in that target market. But do keep in mind, right? There could be people in your audience that you've recently sold a vehicle to, right? So you also want to figure out who you don't want to communicate with. And that could just be folks that aren't in that target market, but it could also be people who are that you want to make sure you don't send an email communication to, or you want to put some emails into the Google machine to avoid showing ads to those consumers as well, right? It's really the idea of putting in a list into those folks that you've already supported, right? We'll come back to them in another few months when it's time for service. All right, so it's time to go back to school. And I do apologize. I understand that not everybody enjoys going back to school or going down that path. But let's pretend it's a school that's super fun, right? It's one of these new age schools where you get to sit in a beanbag and learn all sorts of wicked stuff from people that care. All right, so we're at this wicked new school and we're learning about marketing. And we're talking about something you may have heard of before, the 4 P's of marketing, right? We're talking product, price, position, and promotion, right? So often when we talk about advertising, we talk about campaigns, people are just thinking promotion, right? But there's all sorts of other pieces of the puzzle that are really important. So when we talk the product component, and we're talking automotive dealerships, particularly franchise retail, there's a limited degree of control that we have to be able to adjust that product. It comes in on the truck, the vehicle gets backed off, it hits your lot, that's your product. Sure. All right, so pricing. Pricing is a really important P, right? And you're super familiar, no doubt, with the importance of pricing for your business, right? On a regular basis, you're going into your systems and adjusting price based on the information you can get from systems to help you decide what the market value of that vehicle is today. It's really like stocks going up and down and all the variations. It's been wild, particularly for used vehicles over the last while, right? The importance of a competitive price is so significant now that we've even got third-party listings environments that are showing up whether this is a fair price, a good price, a great price, all of these things telling consumers whether you've got your vehicles priced right. And that can really determine whether they're going to move off the lot at a great rate or a snail's pace, right? And just consider other examples out there in the marketplace, like if you're about to purchase a barbecue, right? You see a deal for 25% off, are you more or less likely to go and purchase that barbecue? Price has an absolute impact. There's this old thing called price elasticity and all that sort of stuff. You can get into the economics of it if you like, but the bottom line is you've got to price your vehicles right. And if you've got it priced right, communicate that benefit. And keep in mind too, right, there's lots of things happening now that inventory is back in stock, right? The manufacturers are doing a lot relative to pricing. In some cases, they're changing it multiple times a month. It can be a little frustrating for sure to get those changes right, but those 0% offers or those cash on the deal offers are great ways to help you move those units. Take advantage of those price changes along the way. They'll definitely help you out, and we'll get into that a little more in just a sec. All right, so the next P, positioning, right? How are you going to position that offer, right? Let's go back to that barbecue example. Summertime is here, it's time for the barbecue, right? That's a positioning statement. You're going to be having the family over, you can put some little great pictures of the family scene, the barbecue scene, all that kind of stuff. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about positioning. On the auto side of things, it's really about the right time for the car, right? Is it a back to school kind of situation? Is that how we're positioning the offering? Is it a Labor Day sale, right? All of these things are relative to positioning that timing of the sale, right? So different needs come into play. Maybe it's college students, maybe it's an expanding family. Lots of great reasons to help on the positioning side. Another one relative to positioning, and this is just relative to free cash flow, is things like tax season, right? What are you doing with that tax return? Are you putting it on your RSP, or are you getting that new truck? In positioning, you also want to consider how you're positioning a particular unit for that audience, right? So consider, when was the last time you were looking, again, let's say the truck, let's say the F-150. You're checking out the F-150, and it's in this perfect scene of all sorts of houses going up, or maybe it's in the quarry and they're getting rocks loaded into the back of the truck, right? That's positioning the vehicle for work, right? And then maybe you've got another positioning and the slide moves on the website, and all of a sudden that vehicle is full of a couple motocross bikes. That's positioning that vehicle to get out and play, right? These are all different ways to consider positioning, and you do have the ability to make changes relative to the positioning of it, or to decide how you're going to communicate in your market what's more relevant. Do you have a store that's near a ski town? Well, you should probably relate it to that world. Are you in more of a labor environment? Are you way up north, maybe where there's a lot of logging happening? You probably don't want to talk about the resort lifestyle when you're communicating the benefits of that vehicle. So promotion is the fourth P, and it's really the environment that people think of, or the piece of marketing that people think of the most when they hear the term marketing. This is the advertising. This is when we're putting all these pieces, all the other pieces together, and we're communicating a message to our target audience. We're communicating our pricing, we're communicating the positioning, all of those things in that promotional activity. So you want to make sure that you choose the right methods with which to communicate to your target audience. And back in the day, it used to be something where it was a question mark relative to, is this a print audience? Are we going to communicate with these people with a newspaper? Are we going to reach them using radio? If we're going to use radio, which station are we going to use? Are we going to use the rock station? Are we going to use the alternative station? Are we going to use the classical station? These are all things relative to segmenting that audience that you're looking to communicate with. In digital advertising, it's a little bit more complex than that, because there's these huge swaths of audience that can be reached by online activity. Consider, I think it's something like 98% of the Canadian market today is active online. And if they're active online, they're probably interacting with the Google sphere of products. If they're interacting online, they're probably interacting with the Meta sphere of products. Though there's lots of ways to communicate with different folks, and fortunately, as a marketer or working with your ads partner, working with your vendor partner, you can decide how you're going to target your promotions to those areas, right? So you can say, the Gen Xers, we want to go after them this way. The millennials, we want to go after them this way. Gen Z, we're going to focus in this environment, and, well, Alpha, you probably don't need to use up all your riz on them just yet, but we'll get to that later. So there's quite a few components that we're talking about relative to all these pieces of the puzzle, relative to these 4 Ps, right? It's important to keep in mind what you have control of, what your manufacturer has control of, and what your marketing partners have control of, or what they can actually help with, right? So think of it this way. Are you going to give them total control of the product? Are they going to build service packages for you? Are they going to do, make the decisions relative to what add-ons you're going to put on the vehicle? Probably not. Are they even going to get involved in pricing? Right? You may have a great partner that's able to help you understand whether you're priced over market and things like that. Those are things you need to reflect on as well. But typically, that's not part of their puzzle either. It's really about promotion, which is the big piece of the puzzle, and positioning, how you're going to message that goal in market. So you've got the positioning, you've got the promotion. Those are the things that your partner is going to be able to help you with. These are the things that you need to start to get your list together to be able to communicate the goals of the campaign, right? A great partner should be able to simply hear your goals, right? What do you have that's on the lot that you need to move more of? You've got mid-size sedans that you've got to get aggressive with, right? You've priced them aggressively. You've maybe packaged them out aggressively. You may be even having a situation where you've got service benefits attached to that vehicle, right? Now it's time to figure out how can we position this, right? So we've got sedans, they're fuel efficient. Maybe it's something about a commuter program, right? Maybe we're talking about emphasizing the affordability of that vehicle, emphasizing the efficiency of that vehicle getting to and from their workplace. In this post-COVID environment, we can even talk about the nice aspects of having that private space to go to and from work in, as opposed to riding in a communal environment, right? Lots of different ways to do it. The key to it, though, is you don't have to just think of one positioning statement, just like I mentioned before relative to trucks. So if you're going out there and you're putting campaigns together to really make it work for a particular unit on the lot, you may want to work with your partner to come up with a couple of different programs and see what works best. Again, test, measure, modify, or test, measure, and grow. Let me give you another example relative to how you can position things differently, build out your campaigns a little bit differently from one vehicle being communicated in a different fashion, right? So, for example, we're at a GM retailer, we're moving Tahoes, great big vehicle. And of course, it's extremely safe. It's great for summer trips. You can move a lot. You can move a lot of people. There's a lot of things that you can do, right? So you can have one whole program that is safety focused, right? Where I'm from, there's this highway that freaks people out called the Coquihalla Highway. Would you rather be driving a Tahoe on the Coquihalla Highway or some other vehicle that just isn't going to wrap you in safety, right? That may be a path that you decide to go down, and that's the positioning of that, and then we're communicating in the different ways that we want to promote that message. The other may be, you've got great trips coming up and you want to be able to get everybody in there and even have between the captain's seats in the back, you want to have your great big dog hanging out there comfortably as well, right? So just different ways to communicate the same sort of overarching goal, which is to move these units, but in different ways that are going to help you get the right message out to the different consumers. So as we look through the details of the program that's been running, the metrics end up being really important. So all of the campaign metrics, all of the digital advertising metrics, or even traditional advertising metrics, these are all things that we're going to keep an eye on as we work through these programs. I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is that any campaign that's running typically has a period where it can be adjusted. Typically has an ability for it to go through an optimization period. When we're talking digital ads, we're constantly optimizing, and the systems themselves where the ads are running are optimizing as well. More and more of these environments like Google and Meta are set up to do a lot of self-optimization with machine learning and AI coming into more and more aspects of that world. But the important piece is that we're keeping an eye on the different parts of the puzzle that we have control of. And when I say we, I mean collectively. The operation, the retail location, as well as the vendor partner. Let's see how we break down the 4 Ps relative to the different abilities to make changes to programs to deliver more success. So when we're talking about metrics and we're looking at all the details and figuring out what we can change to improve things, now oftentimes we think about optimizing the campaign, doing all the stuff in the background that an ads company will do. But it's important to consider that there are 4 Ps involved, and 2 of them are ultimately the responsibility of the retailer, the responsibility of the store. So the product, for example, you may have an instance where the bounce rate on the landing page that you're sending people to is quite high, or perhaps there's not enough leads being submitted on that page. Now, what can you actually do to improve that? And it might be something relative to making an adjustment to the landing page, but it could be just giving a little bit more information about the product. It could be optimizing how we're communicating the details of that product. So lots of people could be looking and asking questions and wanting to know a bit more about this product, but not ultimately putting in the details. So helping to add things, maybe it's increasing the warranty. Maybe it's putting a few more benefits into the program, like a service offering or something to that effect. Right? There's different ways that we can still tweak the product a little bit. So it's important to not simply think, okay, I've got this unit and it just is what it is. Right? We've got some retailers where they're putting on all sorts of great aftermarket parts because they're in a rural market that has lots of outdoor pursuits. So they put a rack on, or they have it ready to go with a box for skis or something like that. Different ways that we can tweak product. The other side is positioning, not positioning. I was actually going to go into price. You know what? Let's stick on the stuff that is more related to the dealer first. Let's talk price. So when we're getting lots of folks to the site, we've positioned it well. We'll come back to that one. We're promoting it well, but folks are coming in the door and it's not landing, it's not working. And we actually had this with a retailer in Ontario that was struggling with the fact that they were getting all sorts of great lead traffic, all sorts of great folks to the site, but they weren't able to close on these deals. Ultimately, they found that they had purchased a lot of their pre-owned inventory in a time when the pre-owned vehicles were much more expensive. And they felt at the time that they couldn't change those rates because they were going to lose money on it. The reality is we've just come through this period where used car vehicles went way up and some people bought on the high and had to sell on the down. That sucks, right? We feel that. We totally get that that sucks. But ultimately, you're better off cutting your losses and moving on to vehicles that you can make money on. Right? As soon as we see that issue that's price related, that it's a struggle to get to the price that we need to be at for the market, we just got to do it, right? So whether you want to get it back to auction or dealer trade or whatever else you think you need to do, but just get that vehicle out the door, adjust those prices and be in line. Otherwise, maybe it's just price related things that are to do with a special offer. Maybe a neighbor down the road, a neighboring dealership is doing something great relative to pricing and you need to be competitive with them, right? So sometimes we need to put a little discount on there and make some adjustments along the way. On the side of the marketing partner that you're working with, and sometimes this is done within the store, right? There's great ideas that come from our retailers that we then focus on the promotion of. Other times we're helping relative to making those positioning messages really sing. So positioning can affect click-through rate for sure, right? One of those things that happens, and when we're looking at the details within Google Analytics or within our own reporting environment, we can see that the click-through rate can be quite low, right? Those are environments where the ad isn't resonating with the consumer that's looking at it. So the folks that we're putting those ads in front of aren't seeing that positioning as being of interest to them, right? So perhaps we need to adjust the ad copy, make it a little more interesting, right? A campaign that I worked on a while back was relative to a buy-in effort, right? Buying vehicles from our previous customers or buying vehicles from new customers. But it was a function of changing the messaging so that it resonated more relative to that cash in hand kind of communication. So making sure that people understood that they could walk away with a check that day, right? Also even just putting human beings in the ad, particularly relative to Facebook and stuff like that. When there's people in the ad, sometimes it's just a matter of making that change, going from putting cars to people with cars. There's all sorts of fun things that you can play with in that regard. The last side of it is the promotion, right? The high cost per request, right? So when we go down this path and we're finding we've got all the other pieces right, and we still can't get that cost per lead down, we may well have chosen the wrong place to put that message, right? And that can happen a lot of different ways. The reality is Meta has myriad different types of ads. Google has all sorts of different types of ads as well. And finding the right way to communicate the message that you've got can be really important, right? In certain cases, the message will be better suited to a video where we have to explain a little bit more. In other cases, it might be perfect for a search campaign or a display campaign, right? Even different types of display can be important differentiators along the way as well, right? Do we use a carousel ad in Facebook? or do we use a static image ad in Facebook? Do we put inventory in there or do we not? Right? Lots of decisions that need to be made on the promotion and the advertising side, but that's something that your partner should be helping you with. You bring them the product and the price and make sure that those are right. They should be able to help you with the positioning and the promotion and get that right. It's been such a pleasure sharing the 4 Ps. It's been a pleasure getting into the beauty of a campaign versus the idea of a single activity in a single medium and hoping that's going to change the world. We need to put a lot of pieces together in order to bring success to the goal that you have in mind, right? So remember, it's all those pieces together that creates that campaign to deliver long term. That's what you need to keep in mind for your dealer campaign checklist. This has been a little bit of fun at Ian's desk. I hope you've enjoyed. Again, my name is Ian Cruikshank. I'm the CEO of Leadbox, and it's been such a pleasure to spend time with you today. Have a great one.